We're in a very exciting time for gaming on Linux. The Steam Machine and Steam Frame are set to release eventually. Who knows? Wine keeps getting better and better. WoW 64, which is a way to run 32-bit binaries on a 64-bit system, is now considered to be fully supported and feature parity. Also, the Wayland support in Wine is getting better and better. Over at Nexus Mods, they are committing to mod manager support on SteamOS, and that's also going to mean on general Linux as well, which is very nice to see. And GOG is looking for a Linux developer for their GOG Galaxy client. And more recently, we have a brighter future for Bazzite, the announcement of OGC, the Open Gaming Collective. The OGC is a collaborative organization bringing together key projects in Linux gaming: CachyOS, Nabara, Playtron. Playtron, if you don't know, is the crypto gaming thing, Fira Labs, PeakOS, ShadowBlip, and ASUS Linux, along with Bazzite under Universal Blue, and more partners to be announced soon. The goal of the OGC is to centralize efforts around critical components like kernel patches, input tooling, and essential gaming packages such as GameScope, instead of each distro maintaining separate packages and fragmented hardware support. Improvements can now be shared across the entire ecosystem. In short, a win for one project becomes a win for everyone. If you care about your Linux distros and your gaming discussions, there's one notable missing distro here: CachyOS, and we will get to that. The OGC's kernel efforts operate on an upstream-first approach, meaning all patches shipped by the OGC will at least be in review for eventual inclusion into the Linux kernel. This means better hardware compatibility, fewer duplicated efforts, and a more unified Linux gaming experience for everyone. Now, I know this is good marketing material, but frankly, being an organization doesn't really matter to you as a user. They can do the exact same thing with like a coordinating Discord chat. Who it matters to is industry partners, because what this shows to game developers, to hardware manufacturers, to anyone who might be interested in supporting Linux as a platform is we don't have a bunch of disjointed projects. We have this organization, this probably going to become a foundation where all of these distros operate in and then all share the same sort of work. So you don't just have to target Bazzite or PeakOS or Fira Labs or Nabara. You can target the OGC distros. Along with the formation of the OGC, there are some changes happening to Bazzite. Handheld Daemon HHD will receive no further updates and will be phased out in favor of Input Plumber. Now, the project itself is still going on, and we'll get to the developer of this project, but it'll receive no further updates within Bazzite. The same input framework is being used by SteamOS, CachyOS, Nabara, Playtron GameOS, Manjaro Handheld Edition, and CachyOS Handheld Edition. Bazzite will adopt the OGC kernel, ensuring continued support for features like Secure Boot, expanded controller support, steering wheel support, and more, all maintained collaboratively within the shared kernel project, and will be sharing the patches we've made to various Valve packages with the OGC and attempting to upstream everything we can. Now, in a vacuum, this would just be a great thing. There'd be no drama, everything would be happy, everyone would be enjoying things. We don't live in a vacuum. We don't live in a world where there's no surrounding events. So, HHD, the handheld daemon, this is directly related into CachyOS not being involved in the organization. This project is by a developer known as Antheus. And back in December of last year, they were removed from the project as announced by Kyle. Hello everyone, we have received some troubling reports from the community about one of the maintainers of Bazzite. After taking some time over the last few days, the Bazzite team has made the decision to remove the maintainer due to repeated violations of our code of conduct. We are committed to maintaining a safe and inclusive environment for all contributors and take all reports of misconduct seriously. We appreciate everyone in our community, and we appreciate your patience during this transition. Now, you can take a read of some of the comments that led to the removal, but basically, the TLDR is some people felt uncomfortable with him remaining within the project, and a few developers did actually step away following some of these events. So, along with that, there was the whole framework situation a couple of months back, and Bazzite was involved in that, where they had like 3 degrees of separation from Omaki, which is run by DHH, and there was this like growing pressure within the project to sort of make some clear separation between that and the Anthea stuff, even though it had been going on for a couple of years at that point, basically all boiled up around about the same time. Whether or not you think the removal was justified, there was growing pressure to do something, and basically no matter what Kyle did, it was gonna cause some drama. If he didn't remove Antheus, there would have been drama. If he did remove Antheus, there would have been drama. There was no winning in this situation. And the reason that any of this matters is Antheus wasn't just a random developer. HHD and Antheus's work in the project was actually really important work. He was a core developer for a really long time now, and he's spoken alongside Kyle at FOSSdom in prior years, and there was going to be another talk at the most recent FOSSdom before everything kind of happened. Even though most of this happened back in December, the reason why this all came back around is because of a company known as GPD. You might know them for their pocket computers, the GPD Win, things like that. So, back in September, GPD did nothing wrong, by the way. Just so we're clear, they did absolutely nothing wrong in this situation. Back in September, they announced support for running Bazzite Linux. And roughly 2 weeks ago on the official subreddit, the official adaptation of GPD Win 5 is happening. If you've got any issue on Bazzite, please join our Discord to consult with Bazzite representatives. Basically, there was what they assumed was an official partnership. This was posted by a GPD rep. From all things they could see, they had an official partnership with the project, and there was a collaboration. All things were good. And later on, Kyle, the guy actually in charge of the project, posted this: correction regarding GPD Win 5 support for Bazzite. There has been an update, but first we'll look at the original text. Recently, GPD made a statement that an official adaptation of Bazzite is happening for the GPD Win 5, and that we received hardware from them. I want to make clear that not only have we not received any hardware from them, we have no recent contact with GPD of any kind. A GPD representative appears to be directing users to a Discord other than our own for support as well. The Bazzite team will never ask you to go to a Discord other than our own for support. Please exercise caution. Whatever they're working on is entirely unofficial and out of our control, and will not be supported by us in any way. We ask GPD to cease using the Bazzite name, logos, and other intellectual property until this matter is resolved. I like Kyle, but this might have been the worst possible way you could ever handle this situation. This should have been a private email. This should have been, hey, what do you mean you sent us hardware? We don't know anything about this. Are you sure you didn't get scammed by someone claiming to be from Bazzite? And try to work out why GPD made that announcement, because structuring it like this kind of frames them as being scammers. I understand there being an issue and you wanted to resolve it as quickly as possible, but I hope in future situations, this is not how Kyle handles it. This is just doing reputational damage to both Bazzite and to GPD, because when it was realized that they actually weren't in the wrong, now it makes you look bad. So following this, GPD put out their own statement. First of all, we are just a hardware manufacturer focused on the niche market. We have no interest in getting involved in any political disputes. All we want is to build good devices so users can enjoy using them. Whether they're Windows users or Linux users, that's always been our goal. Starting with the Win 4, we began working with Bazzite. Back then, Antheus was the one who reached out to GPD, and that collaboration continued with the Win Max 2 as well. So when it came to the Win 5, following our usual practice, we planned to send a device to Bazzite for system adaptation and optimization. And Antheus, by all accounts, is a representative of the project. He is someone who is a very active developer in the project, everything lined up. Nothing to them was out of place. They were interacting with someone from the Bazzite project. At that point, Antheus mentioned to me that Bazzite was having some internal management issues. I didn't think much of it. Management problems don't really affect system adaptation work, so we decided to continue the operation as usual. I also casually posted about the collaboration with Bazzite on X, also on Reddit. And then, just 3 days later, the Bazzite announcement you saw came out, where it was basically saying, effectively, you're lying, what are you doing? From day one, all of GPD's collaborations with partners have been entirely voluntary and unpaid, including reviews as well as software and operating system development. So I don't know whether there are any commercial disputes involved or something else going on behind the scenes, but GPD is completely innocent in this matter. Obviously, it's GPD saying that GPD is innocent, but yeah, they actually are. Because from their side, they interacted with a representative of Bazzite, who was in the Bazzite project, who was a core part of Bazzite, who had done, talks with the person that runs Bazzite. Everything seemed above board. They had no idea that Antheus hadn't communicated this with the rest of the Bazzite team. From their position, they announced something official. This isn't even like a language barrier thing. They just didn't do anything wrong. Following this happening, Antheus made his own statement. Bazzite postmortem. I'm not going to read the entire thing here, but I will leave it linked down below. I want to be clear, everyone involved in this, incredibly biased. Bazzite, biased in favor of Bazzite. Antheus, biased in favor of Antheus. Me, I like Kyle. I've spoken to Kyle. I think Bazzite's a cool project. So read what is here yourself. Everything will be linked down below. Antheus created the project Handheld Daemon HHD, which aimed to provide a vendor software replacement for Legion Go for Linux. We made great progress, and around December 2023, the Legion Go worked properly. Kyle saw that and included Handheld Daemon on Bazzite. On January 2024, ROG Ally support was added, then you had various other devices added, and now it's got actually really good support. In parallel, however, this caused some animosity between me and some other open source developers, specifically Derek J. Clark, who was part of the space since 2022, who, he says, felt he had a seniority and privileges given to him due to being a CachyOS maintainer and admin of a private Discord server with other open source handheld developers, and that meant he was entitled to create a competitor to Handheld Daemon. Now, obviously, Antheus is a little bit salty by the fact that another project came along and started doing what he was doing. That's open source for you. So even though Handheld Daemon was feature complete by March 2024, Derek started Input Plumber around that time and used his means to silence me plus things. The writing in this is horrendous, by the way. I thought I was bad at writing. This included smearing me to other industry professionals, banning me from that private Discord server, and convincing other hobby distributions to use his software through ideological means, e.g., we use more kernel drivers. I don't know if that's an ideological mean, and I don't know how much of this is true, right? I don't know how much of this is him butting heads with developers in these spaces, and how much of this is developers talking shit about him and starting things that are not true. Because he did butt heads with a lot of people. That is an absolute fact. I don't think we're ever going to know, especially with some of it happening in private servers. I thought to myself, well, this is unfortunate, but at the same time, my expert opinion was the architecture of Input Plumber was fundamentally flawed, so it would never work. I told him this personally, and he interpreted it as insulting him. I would love to know exactly how he phrased it, because I have a feeling that he probably isn't great at communication. Whether he meant it as insulting or not, there is a lot of people out there in the FOSS world who really don't know how to talk to people. I never made any public statements about Derek or Input Plumber, as I wanted to keep things professional. Distributions are bound to make the best choice for their users, so if they do not do that, that is their loss. So I focused my efforts on Bazzite, integrating Handheld Daemon closely with Bazzite, its kernel, and a GameScope fork tightly, which I maintained. Bazzite obviously gained a lot of popularity, a 120x increase from when I joined. Now, I don't think, obviously, he is entirely responsible for that, but from what I can see, Handheld Daemon is a really good project. During this, he also cleaned up a lot of maintenance burden around Bazzite, removing the ASUS and Surface images as they didn't need to exist anymore, cleaning the kernel to prepare it for a real secure boot, and adding version locks to NVIDIA drivers because NVIDIA drivers are NVIDIA drivers. As part of this, the build matrix of Bazzite went from a 70% success rate to a more than 95% success rate. Again, I don't know how much of this is his work and how much of this is just generally improved procedures. I also paved a path for Bazzite to have sustainable funding, doing the research and creating an open collective space where a lot of you donate. Now, this is the part where he starts to talk about Kyle. Over the years, me and, well, normal Bazzite users started to have issues with Kyle. You see, while Kyle is a great maintainer, he seems to treat Bazzite as his personal computer OS and the Discord server as his personal hangout. But when you're relying on your computer to play games, do work, and be productive, you want stability and reliability. He tends to push changes before they are fully ready so he can play with them. Examples are day one Fedora releases, regardless of whether it works properly. Although we got pretty good at that. Yanking X11 in early 2024, as Chris Titus, first big YouTuber, was he the first one to look at it? Maybe he was reviewing Bazzite, breaking a lot of his software and causing him to rage quit the review, introducing Bazaar too early while it had memory issues and crashed on low-end hardware, switching to IWD the day Phoronix announced there are rumors Intel stopped maintenance, and breaking enterprise Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi on a lot of Intel devices, using Ptixis, I think is how you say that, as the default terminal. This is like the better GNOME terminal, even though console is fine, bundling the Steam client plus problematic codecs so Bazzite cannot ship on hardware, and putting an assortment of unnecessary packages that we have to maintain, 8 GNOME extensions. There are more, but you get the idea. None of this is inherently wrong. A lot of this is just general maintenance drama, sort of disagreements about how quickly do you merge things, the kind of software you include. This is the kind of stuff that happens on basically any distro that has out-of-the-box additions, right? On something like Arch, where it's pretty clean, it doesn't really matter. If you're something like a Fedora Workstation, a Fedora KDE, you're going to have the same sort of arguments. Meanwhile, he seems to treat Discord as his personal hangout, forming parasocial relationships with some users and banning people for disagreeing with him. Look, I'm going to be entirely honest. Basically, everyone who runs a Discord server does this. Like, unless you have, you know, a clear separation between the person who runs it and, like, the management team, every Discord server does this. Pointing out issues or just bans as favors. Now, you might think this is right-wingers or similar. You might think this is right-wingers or similar if you're a certain, so-called tech journalist. Not really. Those are in the single digits. Most bans are due to arguments with people that try to use a single wine prefix, say containers cannot replace their workflow, complain about unorthodox defaults, or mention something vaguely related to piracy. Now, this one I will 100% agree with Kyle on. You gotta get rid of those people, right? That is a legal liability if you want to have hardware partners. Regarding the single wine prefix, this isn't Discord, but is the same thing on GitHub from Kyle. Please remove Bazzite from the supported section of your README. This is on non-Steam launchers on the Steam Deck. I would like Bazzite removed from your README. We do not support running multiple launchers or multiple games from one launcher under a single prefix, and as such, we do not want to deal with support requests from your project. We've already had to explain this to numerous people who've come to us for game support and left disappointed because they had to remove their entire library before we'd offer any support. I know this is annoying and I get why people want to do so, but this method of managing wine is very prone to breakage. If you can, you are much better off having every single thing in a separate prefix to make sure you don't have any overlap of dependencies and things trying to uninstall other things. It's just a big mess. You're better off not doing it. Now, could Kyle maybe be friendlier with how he phrases it? Yes, absolutely. But he is right here. The handling of this also does not abide to modern COC standards, causing animosity and pent-up anger in users, where some lash out in frustration in DMs, which are then used as evidence to ban them permanently. It was a common occurrence for me to wake up in the morning and see Reddit mod messages by disgruntled users. During my tenure as moderator on Reddit and Discord, I banned around 3 spammy accounts on Reddit total. After a while, I started to get frustrated with this behavior. I told Kyle to stop. Again, I'm curious how he said it, and only some of the messages were public. This caused certain problematic members of our community to misinterpret what I was saying and try to target me and cancel me online, to which Derek also joined in by making public statements, as they thought the status quo would stop and they seemed to rely on our community for psychological support. Again, welcome to Discord. Now, he claims Kyle used this cancelling as a fulcrum, and I assume thought, Bazzite is at a good place, I do not need people questioning my breaking changes, I will kick Antheus, then adopt the upstream integrations to e.g. align with Valve. This way, I released some political pressure, part of which was framework, a relationship Kyle handles, and gain full control of Bazzite. He basically already had full control of Bazzite, so I'm not really sure what that part means. However, I do think the timing around the framework stuff, the fact that this was not new behavior, right? Like, some of the messages that were linked to as Antheus being bad and should be removed, those were from a year earlier. I do think that some of the pressure did come from the framework situation. He is now trying to create open gaming collective to offload responsibility about hardware maintenance to others, inviting anyone that would join to do so. I don't know how long this has been a work in progress for, so I can't really say. Would I be surprised if it happened after that point? Because that did happen back in December. No. Do I think it's necessarily directly tied to this happening? Again, it's hard to say, maybe some amount of it, but I do think there is a lot of value to hardware partners in having a, shared group of distros. Without following an established process, he abused his credentials access to Bazzite infrastructure and a first mover click advantage to remove me. He then blocked me and cancelled our upcoming talk in FOSS and wiped all mention of me from Bazzite's website. Noel was also complicit with it, sending me a nice thanks for the effort message and telling me they would reduce my credentials first. To that I said no. I am an equal or I am out. After 2 years, I am entitled to that. And whether or not you think Antheus should have been banned or not, I do completely understand where he's coming from with that. He doesn't want to be in a situation where it's like, oh, well, I'm a core part of this OS, but, I'm not really involved in it. I'm, in this weird secondary position. I get why he's like, okay, if you're not going to have me involved, just get rid of me entirely. As for why this postmortem is only coming now, well, I want to give Kyle, and, me, some time to reflect, perhaps reconsider his actions. But alas, it seems that is not the case. Usually things are best handled in private, so this is somewhat of a last resort. I do agree with this. I think a lot of what happened here basically happened because things were being ironed out in public. The GPD situation never had to happen publicly. That should have been a private email chain. As for the GPD situation, in November, I was in talks with GPD about adding proper GPD Win5 support in Bazzite. This is before being banned. In January, this is after being banned, I talked again with GPD, explaining to them some of what I had here with uncertainty about Bazzite's future. At this point, he should not have been talking more with GPD as a representative of Bazzite. He was not in the project anymore. Also, he'd never communicated this to the project, so the project had no idea this was being worked on, so he definitely shouldn't have been doing this. We agreed that if integration could be finished, this would be best for the users that bought devices on that promise. I understand why he's doing that. He should never have been doing this without informing the project, though. The only integration that is left as far as Bazzite is concerned is handheld daemon, and I'm still the person responsible for that, so I'll slowly do it over the next few weeks. It is very unfortunate Kyle is targeting a company for proudly announcing support for Bazzite Linux. Now, I don't think Kyle handled it correctly, but this is a very dishonest way of doing it. You were trying to create a collaboration without ever informing the project. They had no idea that this was going on. Here, I apologize on behalf of Kyle. Credential abuse/mishandling does not legally give Kyle the ability to trademark Bazzite or take this kind of decision. In fact, it would be hard to trademark Bazzite now, as it is contaminated through my involvement, a lot of which is public and unretractable, and poor handling thereafter. This legal murkiness, pre-existing to an extent, is part of the reason I'll be focusing my efforts elsewhere. The Bazzite mark can only be used non-commercially from now on, and not sold moving forward, otherwise we will need to have a follow-up discussion. Everything I've read, everything I've been told, this is basically nonsense. I don't know why he's, framing it like this. Yeah, this doesn't appear to be true at all. I've been talking about it through the video. Let's talk now about CachyOS. Open gaming collective formed to push Linux gaming even further. Will CachyOS join? This is a comment from Peter Jung, who is the founder of CachyOS. We've thought about this, but we've opted out. Since we do not see all too much benefit from our side, handheld stuff is not our major focus. They do have a handheld version, but it's not their core focus. Also, we had some concerns that this could get a bureaucratic loophole, which seemed to be more or less true so far. Additionally to us, this initiative looked like an emergency rush thing so that Bazzite finds new kernel maintainers and other technical stuff after kicking the maintainer, which basically made all the integration work for them. We neither want to be associated with Playtron 2, there are more reasons, but I'll keep them out of the public. Again, Playtron is a crypto gaming platform. There could theoretically be a benefit in terms of specific patches for handheld devices. Antheus did a really good job in creating and finding the proper patches, but since the person is not in Bazzite anymore, and the rest of them seem to not have the experience. We've been working together with Chimera OS and Asus Linux for more than a year. Much testing and integration from Input Plumber came from CachyOS Handheld Edition 2. I don't think for that a collective with strings attached is needed. Basically, they can take things that are improved upon from the collective, they don't need to be a part of it, right? As I was saying before, for the individual distros, this could have just been a Discord chat and it would have achieved the same things. The reason why it exists isn't for the users, it's for the companies that want to support these platforms. Someone asked, hey, maybe consider offering Antheus a job on the handheld edition. Peter said, could be a great technical enhancement, but we keep us away from jumping into drama. Understandably, also, they're not using Handheld Daemon. They are using Input Plumber, but they just don't want to be involved. And I mean, it has been known for more than a year and a half, and then acting surprised and not being prepared when a main person gets kicked out is kinda weird. And we have one final statement from Bazzite. Upholding our values, our final update on GPD. 1. GPD is not at fault. We want to clarify that GPD is not at fault for any misrepresentation of Bazzite support. They were unfortunately misled by communications from the former member. At the time, they were a member. Yeah. Team changes. The former member was removed from the team for several code of conduct violations over the past few years. This is why I feel like the timing is weird. Again, it wasn't a surprise that Antheus acted the way Antheus did. If the code of conduct actually mattered, he would have been removed like a year and a half ago. But the pressure was there, and it was a good way to release some of it. By an overwhelming majority vote by the Universal Blue members, the decision was made to remove them from the project. This took place back in December. Official communication channels. All ongoing communication with vendors or device manufacturers should be done through our official press@Bazzite.gg email. No Bazzite maintainers will contact you for any project communications through personal email addresses. This will validate that you are speaking with a current member of the project. I do think the way he was doing it was really stupid. The fact that he was trying to set up a project outside of official channels and didn't tell the project about it, that was going to lead to a disaster. Moving forward with GPD, we would like to turn this into a positive outcome for all parties involved. We'd like to help GPD expand Linux support beyond Bazzite for future devices. We also ask that you refer any questions you have about Bazzite support on GPD devices to this post. We are truly thankful to our community for all of their support through the years for Bazzite. We are excited for the future. So at least at the end of the day, the GPD users aren't losing out on anything. There appears to be still some sort of collaborative effort going on here. Which, hey, at least something good came out of this. Frankly, a lot of this situation never had to have happened. Firstly, if you're going to have a code of conduct, actually use the code of conduct, right? If you're going to just have it there because it looks good to have a code of conduct and then don't actually enforce it, right? Just don't, right? Just delete it. Just delete it or use it. Like, that's simple as that. Secondly, the GPT situation should have been handled through private communication. There shouldn't have been a message posted publicly before you knew why GPT said what they were doing. And thirdly, if you're going to have a collaboration, make sure other people in the project are actually aware of the collaboration, because that's going to end in disaster if you don't. So hopefully everything going forward ends up going smoothly. I don't want anything bad to happen to Bazzite. There is a lot of users on Bazzite who really rely on it. And yeah, I guess let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think about the whole situation? I'll leave all of the stuff linked down below. Be sure to go and read through it. Come to your own conclusions. If you disagree with me, disagree with me. If you agree with me, agree with me. I don't care. I'm not your dad. So, yeah, if you like the video, go like the video. Go subscribe as well. If you really like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, subscribe, Daily Bearer Pay, linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and this was the longest video I've recorded in a while. I actually don't know how long it's going to be, but my notes make it seem like it's long, and the number of clips make it seem like it's long, so we'll see. You'll see the bar down below that tells you how long it is. Bye. Something like this.